Okay, it is 10:56 a.m. now. We have approximately 2 hours to go through our public speaking workshop today. And let's get this rolling, shall we? Assalamu alaikum, Sister Nargis. How are you doing?
Alhamdulillah, how are you all doing?
I'm great.
I think we're getting people in. They were thinking it was 11 o'clock for some reason. Yeah, you could get started in a minute, I guess.
Yeah, I think the social media posts did mention 11 a.m. by the way. So do you think maybe we should give it another 4 minutes, because maybe more kids will join?
Yeah,
at 11.
They're just getting in.
All right. Okay, guys. But for those of you who are here earlier, thank you so much. Really appreciate it. It really helps myself and Sister Nargis and everybody who's been organizing this to make sure things run on time, things run smoothly, and you guys are helping us make that happen. So thank you so much.
I think it's about now. Maybe you guys can turn on those beautiful cameras of yours and let us see how you're looking this morning.
Yes, so I do want to state that for today's workshop, I would love for every one of us to unmute themselves, share your faces, because hey, let's think of it this way, right? If we were sitting in a classroom, ideally, if the pandemic was not there, would you be sitting facing your back towards me? No, right? Like, I want to have a more humanly interaction here with everyone. And I would love if you guys can, please turn on your cameras so that I can see you, you can see me, and we can kind of replicate a more of a real life classroom scenario. And having said that, if you are, let's just say, uncomfortable with your background, I can share this website with you on the chat. And use this website to download a virtual background for Zoom. Anyone that you can pick, just pick one, download it. And once you have downloaded that, you can, where it says start or stop video, there's an arrow beside that icon. Click that arrow. You will see something like choose virtual background. Click that button, choose virtual background, and you will be able to then select the virtual background that you have just downloaded from the settings called backgrounds and filters. So thank you so much. I see Rana, Fazan, Halima, Fatima, Javeria. Thank you for turning on those cameras and having and helping me create more of a real life experience over here. Thank you.
Okay, I think we can begin now. And I'm just going to be just an observer today.
All right. Let me then quickly share my screen with you guys. Okay, so I will need some help from you guys. Can you guys see my screen?
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah. Awesome. Yeah. Thank you. Perfect. And you guys see the correct screen, I'm guessing. Public speaking and storytelling with the mic on the center, right? That's the one you're seeing. Perfect. Awesome. All right, let's get started. Hello and assalamu alaikum, everyone. I am super excited to be running today's workshop on the topic of public speaking and storytelling. Honestly, one of my favorite topics ever. I've been running a lot of different workshops on different topics, but this is hands down one of my favorite topics ever. For those of you who do not know me, my name is Omer Qadri. Some of you may have seen me at a previous the orientation. Some of you may have not, but if this is the first time you're seeing me, well, my name's Omer and I'm a mindset and success coach. One thing I'm gonna request all of you to do is something, a couple of requests actually. First, I'm hearing the bell, ding ding, the ting ting bell going on, and it tells me that there are more and more people joining us, which is fantastic to see. The first request is going to be, help us share the message by taking a picture of, let's just say, this particular screen that you're seeing. Take a picture, share it on your social media. If you are comfortable, tag me, tag My Voice Canada. This really helps us increase our reach, our message. So if you can, please do that. And the second thing, as your facilitator for today's session, I am responsible for creating a positive learning environment for everyone, right? So if I am to make that happen, I need a lot of engagement. I need high amounts of engagement. And I have a confession to make. I need your help to create this highly engaged session, and I cannot do this alone. Hence, there are some ground rules. Some of you who joined us really at the beginning and earlier today, thank you so much for doing that. I've already mentioned this, but in order to create this highly engaged session, I want everyone to talk, right? I want everyone to talk, speak up. I want you guys to ask questions at any time, even if even if I'm going in a certain flow. I want you to participate. I have created different exercises for you to participate, have discussions, and I'll be asking you guys questions throughout today's session. So as I'm asking you those questions, I want you to engage, I want you to participate, and I want you to have those discussions. This is called active learning, right? And that's what we want to have. When we are having active learning, that's when we are actually learning. If you are in this session today with the mindset of a passive learner that, oh man, it's okay, it's just Sunday, I'm just going to wake up and just listen in and see what happens, then I honestly recommend that you drop off right now. Because I don't think for the next 2 hours will be a good use of your time if you are in that passive learner mindset. Hence, to create more active learning and engagement, I want every single one to turn their cameras on. If we were sitting in a real classroom, I bet you will not be sitting with your backs turned towards me, or you will not be sitting wearing a Halloween mask in front of me, right? So similarly on Zoom, I want to see you. I want you to see your friends. I want to see your teammate. I want everybody to see each other, just because that's what builds trust. That's what builds engagement and connection in a virtual setting. So if you can, please turn on your cameras. That would be great. I will share a website again if you are uncomfortable with your background setting, like your physical background. As you can see, my background, I have used a virtual background, right? This is definitely not my room or my library. I can promise you that. This is a virtual background. So here is a website. Let me just put that in the Zoom chat again. Where did the chat go? So there you go. I'm putting the URL for you to download virtual backgrounds for Zoom. Choose a background, download it, and then save it on your computer. And once you have done that, click on the Start Video button and choose, there will be an icon, a button just beside it using an arrow saying choose virtual background. Click that button, and under background and filters, you will be able to see, you will be able to see choose virtual background and select the file that you just downloaded. And last but definitely not the least, I want everyone to put their cell phones away, not in your pocket, not on your desk. I want everyone to just throw your phones away so that you are fully attentive, fully present, and engaged in the session. We have been doing a lot of work, a lot of hard work to create a very engaging session for everyone. And we don't want you guys to not make the best use of today's session. All right. So please, if you can, throw your phones away and be present, because otherwise you're just there, not really listening. And, that's called passive learning. We don't want that. And it'll just be a waste of your time, your friend's time, and everyone's time. So let's be respectful for everyone's time. Those are just some of the rules. So before we begin, I do want to quickly take a look at everyone's. Okay, so there's still a few people who still haven't turned on their cameras. I'm gonna wait for a few more minutes in case you guys are still waiting to turn on your cameras or trying to figure out your background. I'm gonna give you guys another minute to do so. Sounds good? And I hope that makes sense. I don't want to be too, prescriptive, but at the same time, it's very important for us at My Voice to create an engaging environment over here. All right, and cool. So I'm getting a few direct messages as well that people are running a few minutes late. That's fine. I'm just going to quickly respond back to them. All right, so with that, I guess we can begin. Shall we? What do you guys say? Should we begin then? Yeah. I want to hear some yeses. Unmute yourself and you can say yes.
Good.
There you go.
Yeah, let's start.
Thank you, Faizan. Thank you, Javeria. That's awesome. This is what I want. I want people to talk back at me. Otherwise, I swear to God, I will feel so bored. I kid you not, because I'll be like just talking for the next 2 hours. And can you imagine how boring that can be? Like just I'll feel a little psychotic, and I don't want to feel that. So thank you. All right. Give me one more second, a few more direct messages coming in. Quickly need to respond to that. Okay, so let's get started. The first thing I want to ask you guys, all right? Why are speaking skills important for you? Who wants to go first? Unmute yourself and you can just,
Okay, can I go first?
Faizan, go for it, brother.
So I think speaking skills are very important because it's the only way we can actually like get our ideas into others' minds, and it's the only ways we can share what we're thinking and what we're planning, and it's the best way of how we can work together.
That's absolutely right, man. I couldn't agree more. And thank you so much for being brave and being the first person to speak up. So thank you, Faizan. That's fantastic. That's great. I want more people to talk about why is it important for you specifically. So for Faizan, we heard it's important for him to communicate his ideas and get buy-in for his ideas, right? And that's why he thinks speaking is important, which is absolutely true. But what is it? I want to know more personally, why is it important for you? Anyone else as well?
Halima, do you want to go?
You go first.
I was just going to say speaking is kind of how we communicate with everyone and gain exposure and learn more as well. And also just from like a school mindset. In school, we have like English and everything. And a lot of our marks are based on speaking and discussions. So I think that's why it's really important as well.
Absolutely. Yeah. Everyone needs to get some good grades to get into good schools, etc. And that's just of the standard life that we all have, but absolutely true. That's awesome. Thank you so much for sharing that, Fatima. All right. I think we had one more person who was gonna speak. It was Halima, right?
Yeah.
Yes.
I think to what Fatima said, it's definitely important for school, just like having good presentation skills. But I also know like effective communication is important no matter like what job you have or things like that.
So what job you have, and so outside of school, you're thinking about the job aspect of it. Like it's going to be really important to speak, and again, something similar to what Faizan said, to build your ideas, to share your ideas and get buy-in for your ideas, even in a work environment. Absolutely true. Yeah. So cool. Anyone else who wants to share before we move on?
I can go.
Yeah, Roa.
Roa.
Roa. Yes, Roa,
Yes.
tell us.
So I was part of Toastmasters before. I still am. And the reason I joined was actually to help with my presentation skills. And then after that, I found that it really helps like build my own confidence.
Yeah.
And like anything that goes on around our world, like I know I have the ability to speak up about it. And also I'm in the science program and I do like research with a couple profs. And I think it's very important, like, because there's a huge disconnect between science and the rest of the population. So I think it's important to be able to speak about what we're actually doing.
Yeah.
And so like not in a way that's filled with jargon and everything, because I feel like I'm in a science program and everyone is just, we're very introverted. And so that's not very good. So I think we need to be able to like speak about what we're doing, because I do find it fascinating, and I feel like everyone else should be able to like learn about it without going into like the nitty bitty stuff about it.
That's awesome, Roa. Thank you so much for sharing that. I'm so happy that you said that, and I'm so happy that you feel that way. There are a few things I think I have in store for you that will really excite you about today, especially when you brought up the point about a lot of kids in science are introverted. So I want to share some stuff later on, not right now, but you will see very, very soon, where I touch a little bit on the power of the introverts. All right. So bear with me and we'll get to that. So what is your mission as a speaker? And to answer the question of why speaking skills are important, well, who over here knows TED Talks? Everybody, right? There you go. Everybody knows of TED Talks, right? So Chris Anderson, who's the CEO of TED Talks, he says that as a speaker, your mission is to take something that matters deeply in you and rebuild it inside the mind of your listeners. And that something is an idea. So it goes back to something very, very similar that Roa and Faizan mentioned, right? That Roa said that she really is fascinated and passionate about science. And, she thinks that it's important for her to, take that idea and tell it to other people so that they can also become fascinated and she can inspire other people. And that's the whole purpose of this, of speaking. And similarly, that's what Faizan also mentioned. It's all about communicating your idea. The one thing that really I want you to note over here is the fact that what Chris Anderson over here talks about, to take something that matters deeply to you. And that's super, super important. Whatever you're choosing to speak about, if you want to be a great speaker, you have to pick a topic that matters to you deeply. Because when you're up on stage, you can then, your passion and your interest level for that topic, for that subject, can infectiously come out to the audience automatically, right? I am passionate about public speaking on its own. I'm passionate about teaching on its own and coaching kids and young professionals and entrepreneurs. And that's what I do as a mindset and success coach. So this is why I do this. I'm super passionate about it. And I have, no problems in speaking, as you can see. So what are some of the other reasons? Well, number one, inspire, right? As a speaker, your job is to inspire others. A talk or a great speech has the power to really inspire others. And I'll give you an example. Elon Musk, on the 2nd of August 2008, he gave a speech that inspired his SpaceX employees. In the story, it goes something like this. All right. Um, Around that time, 2nd of August 2008, SpaceX had already suffered 2 failed launches, and this was the 3rd launch. And everyone in the company knew that a failure could really force the company to come to a closure, to come to a failure. And so it happened. The Falcon rocket, it soared off the launch pad, and right after the first stage, it actually fell away and disaster struck. And the spacecraft, it exploded. And the video feed, it went dead. And all the employees at SpaceX, like around 350 employees, and this account is actually recalled by their HR talent acquisition head. Her name's Dolly Singh. So she was recalling this event, and she said all the 350 employees of the company, the moment the video feed went dead and there was an explosion, you could sense the morale of the entire building just go down. Everyone was feeling despair. The mood was thick. Everyone was feeling just defeated. And then out comes Elon Musk to speak to them. And he told them that he always knew, and his leadership always knew that this is going to be the mission that they were on is going to be hard. And despite what happened, they actually accomplished something that very few nations, let alone companies, have achieved. They were able to launch a rocket into the first stage itself, into the outer space. And all they had to do was pick themselves back up and get back to work. Elon Musk, at that time during the speech, he was awake for more than 20 hours, in fact. And at that point, he said the following with a lot of ferocity, with a lot of fortitude, sincerity, and determination. And he said, "For my part, I will never give up. I mean, never." And after that entire speech, the entire building, it really transformed the mood of the entire building. It just moved from being defeated and despair to energy and enthusiasm and determination. And it just changed. And that, my friends, is the power of speaking. You can inspire people with your ideas. You can inspire them with a single talk. And you guys are kids, so you might not be leading an organization, but think about it. You still have the stage, the spotlight, where you can talk about an idea that you're passionate about and change your life, or even more importantly, your talk can perhaps change somebody else's life. That's the power of a talk. By the way, in between, you guys have any questions, any comments, any thoughts that come to your head, just feel free to unmute yourself and speak, even if I'm going in a flow. The second thing after inspiration is persuasion, right? Perhaps your talk is able to persuade others about a topic that's near and dear to your heart. And I'll give you another example with that. Who's seen The Social Dilemma on Netflix? Right? Fantastic. I saw it the other day, and I kid you not, for the first time, I felt the consequences of fake news. Why? Because that was the powerfulness of the storytelling by the director who was telling the story. And that the power in that storytelling first time persuaded me to care about the issue of fake news. Before that, I knew what fake news is, but I didn't really care much about it. But it was the power of the story that made me care about it. It persuaded me to care about it. So when the audience senses that you as a speaker, you care about a topic, you care about an issue, you automatically create a bond, a trust at an emotional level. And when you are able to connect with somebody at that emotional level, my friends, you have the key to the part of their brain which is actually also responsible for their decision making. Did you guys know that the part of our brain which is responsible for our emotions, trust, and all these soft and touchy feelings is also the same part of the brain that's responsible for decision making. How many of you knew that? Roa knew that. She's in science, I guess. But yeah, that's the truth, right? Like if you are able to really, if you're able to, connect with people at a different level itself, at an emotional level, you're able to then get them to make the decisions in your favor as well. I just got a message over here from Javeria who's saying that my screen is still on the first one. Which screen are you guys seeing, by the way?
We see the one like with the mic.
What? You serious? I've been changing slides for such a long time. Oh,
I
no.
assumed that because you were clicking, but I wasn't sure because it's still on the very first one.
Okay, I have no idea why that's happening because I see another slide altogether. Thank you so much, Javeria, for bringing that up. Now I feel like, oh man. All right, give me a second, okay? Let me see what's going on. Can you guys see it now?
Yes.
Yeah, we can see it now.
All right, so now you guys can read what Chris Anderson said. And my bad, I thought you guys were able to see it for some reason and you guys were not able to see it. Okay, cool. We spoke about the inspiring speech of Elon Musk. We spoke about the power of a talk being able to persuade you and connect with you at an emotional, connect with your audience at emotional level so that you can make them decide based on what you want them to. And last but definitely not the least, I want you to think about your talk, your presentation as a gift to the audience. Nobody over here really wants to be that person who is known for giving shoddy gifts. Am I right? Right? So as a presenter, you have to think of yourself that, hey, your talk is actually a gift to the audience. This is a golden opportunity for you to give the gift of a new idea, a new perspective, a new mindset, or a whole new life mission to somebody else altogether, right? That's the power of a talk. And I hope now my screen is changing. Is it? Yeah, all right. So I have a few great leaders over here who can tell me what's common about these people.
The ability to inspire others.
The ability to inspire others. Yes, that is correct. Anything else other than the fact that they are all great public speakers? Anything else that's common between them?
They all made significant contributions towards their generation.
Absolutely, they did. What about their characteristic or their trait? Any connection between, you know, how they were as an individual?
I think that they truly believed that the work that they're doing was for the betterment of society. And so they were more confident in themselves and the message that they were trying to reach. And it shows in how they are standing now, like they know what they're saying and they're happy to spread it.
Absolutely, yeah. All those points are absolutely correct. In terms of their character or in terms of their natural instinct or personality, in Roa, this comes back to the point that you made actually. All of these leaders, Martin Luther King, Malala, Bill Gates, Nelson Mandela, Princess Diana, they are all great leaders who are shy introverts by nature. They all are shy introverts by nature. Some of you might be feeling a little shocked, and that's okay. Just because somebody is extrovert by nature does not mean that they will be great public speakers. The difference between introverts versus extroverts does not come in the form of how well they speak, but it's all about where one finds their energy from. And I know a lot of us on this Zoom call today, in this attending this workshop, we perceive ourselves as shy introverts, and I'm in that same boat. I'm an introvert, and I too used to feel very scared to utter something embarrassing and becoming a center of jokes. I kid you not, right? And as a result of that fear, I always told myself that perhaps it's better for me to stay quiet in a world that seems to be ruled by the extroverts. But of course, things changed, life circumstances changed. And I want you to remember this as well, that you, despite of your, whether you are an extrovert or an introvert, that is not a barrier towards you becoming a great leader or a great speaker by any means. Any questions, any comments on that so far? No? Here's a book and a TED Talk that I would highly recommend each and every one of you, either you guys read the book or watch the TED Talk. It's a book by Susan Cain. And the book is called Quiet, which is all about the power of the introverts. She also talks about, her book and her research and the power of the introverts in her TED Talk. I would highly, highly recommend you guys watch that. Don't do that now. Do that afterwards. Okay? Don't do that now, though. Okay. So now the natural question that some of you might be thinking of is how to create it, right? Feel free to unmute yourself and just chime in, okay? How to create an awesome talk or an awesome presentation. Or some of you, Sister Nargis told me that some of you might be thinking of doing a skit. Okay, so how do you do that? Well, can someone tell me what is the commonality between giving a talk versus giving a presentation or creating a skit?
Can I say something?
Ibrahim, yes.
Presentations are like more informative, so like you have to like bring out like information and stuff, but then like with a skit or like a talk, you have to like try to engage the audience. So when you're doing a talk, you have to like ask rhetorical questions, try to like move around a little bit, engage your voice. And then in a presentation, it's more like, this is like, if you're doing a statistical presentation, like you'd be like, oh, here are the statistics for this and this and this, on to the next slide, something like that.
Interesting point. I really hope by the end of today's workshop, I'm able to switch a little bit of your mindset about presentation. Presentations, in my opinion, they're not supposed to be boring or disengaged or just be on boring statistical data. You can make stories and make a boring presentation turn into something really interesting. And all you need to see how people do that is by watching TED Talks, right? You see how these researchers who are psychologists, statisticians, mathematicians, who are doing all these kind of like, quote unquote, boring research, but they present it to you in a very, very engaging manner, right? So ideally, whether you're doing a skit or a presentation or you're giving a talk, your idea should always be to engage the audience, because if you're just giving a boring lecture on stats, trust me, that's why kids fall asleep in schools, right? I used to be that person as well. Sorry, confession made. Right? Because the lectures were boring, and we don't want that. I certainly don't want all of you guys to be in that mindset of, hey, lectures or talks are supposed to be boring, and believe that. No, they're supposed to be engaging. They're supposed to be fun. They're supposed to be active. So there is something that connects all of these. But thank you, Ibrahim, for bringing that up, because of that, you're able to, hopefully by the end of this talk, we are able to connect the dots between these three. Anyone else who wants to take a stab at finding the common link between a talk or a presentation or a skit?
Yeah, can I go?
Sure, Faizan, go for it.
So I think first off, the main thing they all have in common is that they're all just presenting information, like they're telling you something. But unlike other like mediums, like for example, reading a report or a newspaper, the most important thing here is that you have to like dress the information up, you know, like make it visual, like appealing. So for example, if I had to give like an analogy, maybe like some sort of cake, right? The cake can be very nutritious and delicious inside, but if you have to make it look good on the outside, or else no one's gonna want to eat it.
Absolutely. That's so true. I like that analogy. It's a great analogy. And I think I also saw Roa, who was about to speak up at the same time. Roa, you want to add on to something to what Kazan just said?
No, I was gonna say that they all have like some type of information at the basis that they're trying to convey.
Right. Now, interesting point to note over here. Ibrahim used the word information. Roa used the word information. Fazan, you used the word information. You all are correct. The only difference that I want to make in your mindset, into your brains, is to turn that word information into story, right? Who over here enjoys listening or watching stories, right? Everybody does. Why? We kind of grew up as humans. We all evolved on storytelling. Whether it was our mom and dad telling us stories, bedtime stories as kids, or our grandparents, or somebody, or we grew up on stories. Human evolution has evolved on stories. Before, there was no, back when when humans were hunters and gatherers, there was no there was no notion of written document or a storybook, or even or digital media, or internet or anything. How did people share their ideas? It was through storytelling. The whole concept of people coming together in bonfires and telling each other stories, that's how it all evolved. And that's why our minds are, they have a soft spot for storytellers, right? And there's this fantastic quote that I love by Plato, which is, "Those who tell stories rule the world," right? Those who tell great stories rule the world. I think even Steve Jobs said that. Steve Jobs himself is one of the greatest storytellers of the modern world, right? Disney, Pixar, another fantastic storytellers. And how many of you remember Malala's great speech at the UN, where her story had people in tears, right? I remember that for sure. How many of you seen that speech by Malala? There you go, quite a few of you, right? The commonality is, again, these speakers were able to talk not just about boring information, but they were able to create a story about their experience to share that information. So the idea is for you to become better storytellers. Once you learn the art of storytelling, then whether you're giving a skit, creating a skit, giving a presentation, or whether you are creating or giving a talk on TED Talk or for My Voice, you can be the greatest storyteller. You can be the best director of the skit. You can become the best presenter, because if you have storytelling capabilities. So what's the next natural question, guys?
How do you tell a good story?
Fantastic. Absolutely. How do you create these powerful stories that can connect deeply with the audience? Why? Question. Why do you want to connect deeply with the audience? It's a question to see how many of you were listening to what I said maybe 5 or 10 minutes ago.
I think that when you like connect better with them, what you're talking about, like they remember it more, and they think about it more, and they like later on they keep it with them, rather
Right.
when it's something more boring, they like throw it to the side afterwards.
Absolutely. Yeah. It goes back to the connection between part of our brain that's responsible for that for the emotions is the same part of the brain that triggers decision making, right? You want to connect deeply with them because you can then get them to take an action based on what you want them to, right? If you want them to care about fake news, you can get them to do that. If you want them to raise money and donate towards my voice, they will do so then, if you are able to connect with them at an emotional level. All right. So your mission, again, as a as a speaker, as somebody who's telling a story, is to take that idea and take something that matters deeply to you and rebuild it inside the minds of your listener. And that something is called an idea, right? That's what we just learned from a few minutes ago. What do you guys think is then the number one ingredient to tell a powerful story? There's a hint in there in this slide about this.
From personal experience, I think my most powerful stories when giving like speeches and stuff have been personal anecdotes or something that I've witnessed happen.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe
Right.
something along the lines of like passion, or you just need you need to care about something enough.
Absolutely, bang on, Juveria. That's right. The first ingredient, and I'm not saying, Ro, what you said is incorrect. That is something personal anecdotes do come in handy for sure, and we'll talk about that. But the number one ingredient, the number one requirement to tell a good story or to be able to connect deeply with the audience is that you yourself should care deeply about the topic or the issue that you're speaking about or that you're presenting. If you don't, trust me, the audience will know. Right? Wouldn't you agree? If you don't care about an issue, your audience will know. They're not dumb. They're smart. Audience is smart. They can, in a snap of a finger, they can understand when a person is truly passionate about something and when they're not passionate. So the number one ingredient is, if you are, and I know that a lot of you guys have to speak about the topic of event, whether it's a talk or a presentation or a skit, you have to do that on the topic of fake news. Am I correct in that? Right? Yeah. So I see a few heads not being nodded. So, okay. So you have to first care deeply about that topic. And how do you care deeply then? Well, honestly, can I really teach you how to care about a particular topic? I don't think so. I don't think I can make you care about something. The only way you can really start to care deeply about an issue is when you immerse yourself into a topic. When you immerse yourself into a topic so deeply by reading about it, by watching videos about it, by learning more and more about it, by doing hours and hours of research into it, so that, and this is a step, my friend, that each and every one of you is capable of doing, right? So if you have been delaying or procrastinating about your upcoming presentation or talk on the topic of fake news, well, it's time to pull your socks up. Honestly, it's time to pull your socks up, take a deep dive into the subject, because otherwise your lack of research, your lack of empathy, and your lack of care in the topic will be easily exposed when you are up on stage presenting, because audience will know you haven't done enough research, you don't really care about it. All right. So this is one step where I don't think I can really help you with too much. This is where you will have to do the job, put in the hard yards, and start drilling deep into a particular topic. Okay, so let's assume that now you have done your research, you care deeply about this topic of fake news. What's next? What do you do next after the research? Anyone?
I guess you would have to find a way how to portray your stance of the topic without seeming defensive, without trying to offend anybody.
Mm-hmm. Okay. All right. That's fair. You'll have to think about that for sure. You're on the right track. Anyone else?
Maybe taking into consideration your audience, who you're speaking to.
That's a good point for sure. Definitely take into account. Think about, who are you talking to? Is your audience going to be, students from high school? Is it going to be researchers who have PhDs? Is it going to be parents? Is it going to be serial entrepreneurs? Is it going to be, or are you going to be presenting at a massive stage like TED Talk or something? You've got to know your audience for sure. And for you guys, you already kind of know who your audience is going to be, correct? Yeah, good. So you know what your audience is. And the second step then for you is, even after you know who your audience is to really discover what your through line is. Has anyone heard of this word through line before? Or do you know what through line means? No? Okay. Let me ask you a question again. Has it ever happened with you that you are listening to a speaker or a person who's presenting you with an idea, and suddenly then you have absolutely no idea what they're talking about and where they're going with their talk or their presentation, and you have no clue about what's the point that they're trying to make? Raise of hands who has ever experienced that before. Right? Now, raise your hands if you're experiencing that right now with me, because that would be super ironic, right? I hope that's not happening. Well, jokes aside, through line is basically the theme. Think of it as a theme. Like, what is that theme that you want to get across? What is that point? What is that point that you want to get across through your presentation or through your talk? Think of this as the central stem of a plant, right? That holds the different parts of the story together: the introduction, the middle part, the climax. And without this stem, your narration just falls apart, right? Your intro falls apart, your middle part portions fall apart, your climax falls apart. And, what do you think then in that? Oh, again, I guess my screen was not going through, was it? Right? Now it's going through. So think of, again, I'll try to repeat myself so that I want to make sure you guys understand this point, because it's very, very important. So think of the through line as the stem that holds the leaves together, right? That brings the leaves together. Then the leaves are basically your intro, your middle portion, and your climax. All right. And then what do you guys think are the roots? Oops, I gave it away. This time I clicked too fast. But yeah, your roots are basically the research, the step one, right? The research that you need to do, how much care you want to put into your point, right? How deeply do you care about the issue? And the seed is just like the idea, right? Seed is your idea, and the roots is the research that you have done. And all of these things are the things that are hidden underneath the soil that nobody can see. So the amount of effort that you put outside of your talk is really what will hold your entire plant, hold your entire plan together, your talk or your presentation together, which is why I say the more you research, the stronger your roots are, the firmer your talk or your plant will be. And in this case, that's about your talk or your presentation or your story. Any questions about about the through line? Does it make sense? Right? Okay. So why is it not moving? Sorry, guys. There's something going on with the Google. All right. What slide are you guys seeing now? The through line, what's your point with A and B? Can you guys see that?
Yeah.
Okay, perfect. Sorry, it was getting stuck on my end for a little bit. Sorry about that. Okay, so let's take a look at two examples to illustrate the importance of a through line. Okay, the first one says, I want to share with you some experiences that I had on my recent trip to Banff and tell you what I learned. Okay, this is one way of saying something, right? Another way of saying the same thing is, on my recent trip to Banff, I learned something about strangers, when you can trust them and when you cannot trust them. And let me share with you my experience. Which one sounds better? Or which one has a clearer through line, or what do you think about the two? Compare the two and discuss.
I think
can I say
B has
something?
the better. Oh, sorry.
Yeah,
ahead.
sorry. Okay, Roa, you go first, and then we'll go to Ibrahim.
No,
Okay,
it's okay. You can go.
I think B has a better through line because
Sorry,
you can clearly
say that again. Who has a better through line?
B.
Okay, why do you think so?
Because you can see that they went to Banff. You see that they're going to tell you their experience, and they already told you what they're going to tell you about. That they learned something new about strangers and when you can trust them and when you cannot. But
Right.
A doesn't really tell you what you're going to learn. It just tells you that you're going to learn something.
Yeah, but it doesn't really give you anything to be excited about.
Yeah.
Ibrahim, anything you wanted to add?
Yeah, I was gonna say B because like it tells you about like the first one tells you like the experience the experience the person had, but then the second one tells you what that experience was, and then tells you, okay, I'm gonna share this experience with you guys.
Yeah, exactly.
So it's like
exactly.
more. It starts off more engaging. You want to listen.
Absolutely. It's more clear. It gives you a clear eye. The first one, actually, it might just work if you're telling your story to your parents, because of course, your parents are nice to you. They will listen to you. Whatever, even if it's you're telling them the most boring story ever, they will be like, fine, it's my child. I'll listen to your boring stories. But the second one is more specific, as you both, Roa and Ibrahim, both of you just mentioned. It's not just about the generic topic of fake news or visit to Banff in this case. It's more about a specific theme within a topic. And here, the theme is you're going to learn something new about strangers. That's the theme. The topic was my visit to Banff, but the theme within it was I learned something about strangers. Right? Now you have my interests. Okay, I want to know more about your experience, about what you learned about strangers. So similarly, when you are talking about your learning from the topic of fake news, right? Don't try to, this is a very important point. I want you guys to pay attention to this one and write it down if you want. I don't want anyone to try to cram every single thing that they have learned into their presentation or into their talk. Don't do that. Pick one thing. Pick one thing within the topic of fake news that really fascinated you the most, the one that puzzled you the most, and go with that theme. Really take a deep dive into that theme. Okay? Why? Because if you try to overstuff something, it will remain undercooked. So don't try to, fake news itself you can talk about the impact of it, like how Social Dilemma did, right? Like it talked about the mental health aspect. It showed the mental health aspect of somebody. Then, you could show the impact of fake news from a different perspective of, let's just say, racism and systemic racism and so on. And so there's so many themes within that topic of fake news that can come in. I want you to pick just one and go really deep into it. And that's what will create a powerful story.
Can I add something?
Oh, of course, Saif.
Yeah, I just want to say that I went to this other workshop for journalism, and the journalists that were hosting workshops, that's something that I think could relate to this. And they were talking about when you're writing a piece, but I think it applies to any type of presentation as well, depending on what it is. But they said that if you're not adding to the conversation about the topic, then it won't matter as much to the audience.
Absolutely. And can I ask you a follow-up question? Because the last piece that you just said is very important. If you are not adding something new to the piece, then you're not, or to the conversation, that you're not really adding any value, right? That's what you said. How can you add something new? Any idea? It kind of ties back to something we have already spoken about as a hint.
Yeah, I think one of the most obvious ones is putting forth your own personal experience into the topic. But other than that, yeah, and I think maybe focusing on a specific section of the topic is also a really easy way to add to the conversation. And then just doing both at once, I think, would work too.
Absolutely, 100%. And I want to add to the point that you can only add to that conversation not just through your own experience, but also through your own research. Right? Goes back to the number one requirement: do your research. Deep, really dive into one singular aspect of the topic, and go really deep into it. Become like the best at it. Right? So let's take a look at a few examples, shall we? Our topic now is fake news, and we have learned about the impact of fake news, whether it's negative or positive. It can be very diverse. Number one, like from a journalist's perspective, can you guys see the? Yeah, okay. The first one is how, so your topic is fake news, your through line, and these are, again, I'm going to give you just some examples. Okay. One through line could be how fake news gave me a new sense of life purpose. All right. So for a young journalist, fake news has given him or her a new sense of life purpose. In this story, what am I expecting as a reader or as a listener? In this story, I'm expecting that I will get to hear the narrator's journey on discovering his or her life purpose through a happy or a tragic event that was caused by fake news, right? So here, in this through line, or in this talk, the first one, how fake news gave me a sense of life purpose, the person can go really deep into touching different aspects of their personal anecdotes, which is what Saif you spoke about. I think Roa, you also spoke about giving personal anecdotes, and then you can tie it around the topic of fake news. The second one is how, let's just say your through line is how a country can attack another country without physically entering its geography, right? In that Netflix documentary, The Social Dilemma, I learned that powerful and evil politicians are using digital tools to spread fake news to radicalize and polarize the people, not just in their own country, but in other countries. So as a storyteller, right, if I'm talking about this particular storyline, you now expect, if you are the listener, and this is like the heading of my talk or my presentation, you know that I'm using the topic of fake news to talk about its impact on politics or international relations, on digital terrorism or something of that sort, right? So you kind of get an idea. And again, I'm going to go really deep into just one aspect of fake news. I'm not going to talk within the second one. I'm not going to suddenly make a diversion and go and talk about, oh, this actually also helped me discover a life purpose. Don't do that, because then you're stealing away from your research on the impact of fake news on on international relations and politics. All right, let's take a look at another example, shall we? In another example, your through line could be something like Revolution 101, a crash course in starting a revolution. Fake news can also be good in rare times when it can actually be used to start a positive revolution, right? So that could be your topic. Maybe you found a positive, like majority of the people, perhaps they may be looking at just the negative aspect of fake news. There could be a positive as well. I don't know. I have not done too much research, but this is just an idea. And it could have been, the aspect of it being used to create a revolution in a country that needed to escape from dictatorship or from a bad leader. And you go deep into that particular topic. So here, as a listener, I'm expecting to know more about revolution and how fake news had an impact on that revolution. And last but definitely not the least, your through line could be want to decrease mental illness, become a fake news detective. All right, what's the point over here, right? I'm using fake news to talk about the impact of fake news on mental health in this way. There's so much that you guys can do on the topic of fake news. So I really want you to think about what is going to be your theme What is going to be your through line? And just pick one aspect of fake news and go deep in it. Okay? Any questions so far?
Can I add something?
Of course.
So I think like another way to like crafting your through line or just narrowing down like a good theme would be kind of doing like a field of inquiry and then like a global issue. So in our English curriculum, one of the important things that we do is kind of exploring global issues through textual pieces. So the technique we use to narrow down a theme is the field of inquiry and global issue. So for example, you can do like culture, identity, and community, and then narrow that down. So like for my summative, I'm using an art piece and then I'm showing how culture, community, identity is revealed through that. But my global issue is the importance of racial representation through artistic mediums. So I think that's like a technique to narrow down a coherent through line.
How would you translate that if you were to talk about like in the relation of, let's just say, fake news or something? How would you kind of synonymize it over here?
So could you go back to the slide of
okay, absolutely.
I'm trying to see the example so I can like narrow that
down.
Yeah. So for example, how a country can attack another country without physically entering its geography. I guess your field of inquiry could be like politics, power, and justice. And then you can, the global issue, you can narrow that down to, I guess, this kind of statement that you have here, or like just off the top of my head.
Yeah.
That's kind of what I'm thinking of.
You're on the right track. Yeah, you're definitely on the right track, Fatima. And thank you for sharing that. And I want to make sure everybody kind of understands, the ask over here, or the recommendation. I shouldn't even say ask. I apologize. I'm going to say this is what I recommend. If I were to do what you're doing, this is how I would approach it, right? I would definitely not cram the impact of fake news on mental health, on digital terrorism, or on how it helped me find a purpose and how it also start a revolution. I'm not going to pack all those 5 things into a single talk. I'm going to just focus on one and go deep. That's it. That's the point that I'm trying to make. That's my through line over here with this through line. No pun intended. So thank you for bringing that up, by the way. So in a few minutes, I'm going to ask you guys to, by the way, before I ask you guys to do an exercise, you guys are doing this talk, I think 2 weeks from now, right? Anybody can unmute themselves in 2 weeks from now, right? And you guys are doing it as parts of team or individuals?
Partner or teams, yeah.
Teams. Okay, so in the upcoming exercise, I want you guys to, I think, Miss Nergis can break out people in the different teams, but not right now, in a few minutes. And in teams, I'm going to give you guys a few minutes to craft your through line. And this is what I want you guys to think about. Number one, think of it as like some do's and don'ts, right? Think of when you're crafting your through line, I want you to think about what is that thing that you want your audience to walk away with? What is that idea? What is that, if you have to just write it down in 10 to 20 words, your through line should not be more than 15 to 20 words, okay? What is that key takeaway that you want your audience to walk away with? And it is not stated as a goal. Your through line should not be something like, hey, I want to inspire the audience to think about the impact of mental health on the impact of fake news on mental health. No, it should not be stated as a goal. It should also not be very predictable, right? If you can, try to make it, like a question, something that's inquisitive, something that can raise some curiosity in another person. Okay, any questions about crafting your through line? I've given you a few examples. I've given you a few things to think about. Anything else that anyone wants to add to this perhaps, or have any questions? No? All right, then in that case, for the next few minutes, Ms. Nargis, can we break them out in those teams? I'm not
Yeah,
sure how to do
I
the
just wanted,
breakouts.
yeah, sure. I just wanted to sort of give an idea out there if they want to do that, just because in the real world, as you were mentioning, right, the story makes a huge difference and how you deliver it makes a huge difference as well. So you could see what impacts you. Like sometimes comedy is what gets through, or advocacy, or how to impact on a, I don't know, like if you're combining the systemic racism / fake news. So when you guys go into your breakout rooms, based on what Omar just talked about, you guys can think about how you're going to present it during your communication workshop. And I know not all of you are doing it, or if you want to even add yourself in right now to do it, that's great. We are having team competition, so it'll be kind of fun. And I'll just put you guys in there right now. If you have any questions, feel free to, I think you can do a broadcast or something from your room. Omar, did you want to be in one of the rooms or?
I've actually never, yeah, sure. You can just, if I can jump from one room to the other, that would be cool.
Okay, let me put them in there and then
Yeah.
I'll take you there.
And let me know once everyone's there, then I'll start the timer on my end as well.
Okay, I'm just opening all rooms. Yeah.
And in the meantime, while Sister Nargis is doing that, anyone else has any questions about what you're supposed to do? You are supposed to create your through line, which is, no more than 15 to 20 words, not written out as a goal, and think about what you want your audience to walk away with. All right, if you want, I think if everyone's in a breakout room, you can also put me in a breakout room, and I'm going to start the timer.
You guys, I think have to accept your breakout rooms. Are you not in there? Are they in there? I think they are in there now.
They are in there. I think
Okay,
so.
so what I'll do is I'll put you in the first one.
Yeah.
And you can let me know if you're able to go into other rooms on your own or not.
Okay.
You should get that prompt. Everything good, Omer? You're muted.
Yeah, we can just bring them back now. I just realized it's almost 12:13 now, so we gotta speed it up a little bit.
Sure, let me just close them all. Okay. So they have like second countdown to bring themselves back.
So yeah, we can bring them back now, and I can go back to sharing my screen.
So they have they did two things this semester, which is fake news and systemic racism.
Yeah.
They could do either one of them, or
Yeah.
actually they can combine it or whatever. But as you
Exactly.
said, be more focused, so you could just say,
Because both of those things are so broad, I just don't want them to go to be broad. All right, so we can bring them back in, and yeah, let's get moving. Otherwise, we'll run over time.
yeah, they've been sent the message to just come back. I don't know why they're not. It's gonna close in 8 seconds now. So.
Okay, all right, perfect. All righty. So, how was it? How did it go? I want each team to quickly, share with us whatever you guys came up with in terms of your through line. So, team one, I think Saif's team, Saif, Ibrahim, you guys want to quickly share what you guys came up with?
So like we came up with like I think we like for overall like we came up with like 3 different topics and we came down to one, which okay. So like how like how like social media and the media affect the political view of Muslims, because there's a lot of Muslims who vote for, or not a lot, but there's like a good portion of Muslims who vote for Trump, and then there's some Muslims who vote for Biden. Like, I'm trying to base it off. Right. We're basing it off the election. Sorry.
I want to hear
because of the election this year.
Yeah, Ibrahim, I want to hear those 15 to 20 words that you guys have written down. For the through line.
Okay, so it would be like something like the media has a certain portrayal on the political view of Muslims in America and in Canada, and here are the different types of portrayals. I guess I don't know. Okay. We didn't have time.
All right, that's fine. That's fine. But at least you have a certain idea. Like you're gonna go really deep into its impact on a particular ethnicity, which you are choosing to be Muslims, right? And that's from a political perspective.
We didn't have time to come up with.
That's fine. Yeah, that's fine.
We didn't have time to come up with the 20 lines. Sorry.
That's fine. No problem. But I know 5 minutes is not enough, so that's okay. But at least you guys got a good jump start to think about it and move forward with it after this workshop as well, hopefully, right? Okay, the next team. I think that was Rana and Fatima. I can't remember whose team that was, but yeah, I think Roa and Rana, you guys were in that team, right? Okay, one of you can, whichever one wants to go.
I can go. So I just very quickly wrote down what we were talking about, and it was basically about how fake news has impacted government funding in the US specifically for research relating to COVID.
Nice. That's good. That's really good. I like the fact that it's so crystal clear. I know what you're going to talk about. You're going to talk about its impact on funding for scientific research. Cool. Excellent. Next team. Thank you, Roa. The last one. I think Malaika, you were part of that team, right? Yeah.
Yeah. So, if Malaika, Iman, or Sakina have anything to add on, but during the last few seconds, we kind of decided how like the representation of minorities and specifically like something that happened this summer with the BLM movement, how the representation of them in fake news influences external parties' perception of them.
Okay.
Especially especially kind of like when people they don't know a lot about the issue in the first place, then fake news can kind of fuel that misinformation and
unrest in those populations.
So you're talking about misinformation here, the impact of fake news and misinformation and its impact on certain social movements. But again, I want you to drill deeper into choosing maybe one or two aspects of it and go be more specific. All right. For example, the other team, just as an example, they're choosing the path of fake news and its impact on scientific discoveries and funding, right? Yours is a little bit more broad. I think you guys can do a little bit more work later on to narrow it further, okay? But you got all three of you are on the right track. So without any further ado, let's keep going because I have a feeling we are a little behind schedule. So I'll try to speed things up a little bit and do my best here. Okay, so the first requirement was that you have to do a lot of research, right? You have to do a lot of research and start caring deeply about the issue, because if that's not the case, then your audience will know that and you cannot fake your way out of it. The second was crafting your through line. And the third is, okay, now that you have that stem, you have the idea, you have done the research, all right, it's time for the flowers and the leaves to blossom. This is the intro, the middle, and the climax. How do you create that structure? All right. The intro is about the what. Okay. This is the what. What are you going to talk about? The middle portion is about so what. Okay. Now that I know what you're talking about, so what? Why should I care? And in the climax, you want to end your talk by telling them, okay, now you know the issue in the intro, you know why you should care about in the middle. Here are some actionable things that you and we can do together to bring about a change. Like, what action do you want them to take? Do you want them to buy something from you? Do you want them to donate money? Or do you want them to take an action, plant more seeds, plant more trees in the world? I don't know. Do you want them to start driving electric cars? I don't know what in the climax, you have to come back to what action do you want them to take, or what action do you want people to take collectively? In the intro, let's talk a little bit more about the intro. In the intro, I want you to set the context and define the problem. This is where you introduce your through line. Be very, very clear about what is the point. What is the point that you're going to make across? Because you want your audience to pay attention to you, which is why your through line in the previous, I said it should not be predictable. It should have some element of novelty. And I'll give you the example that I think Roa and her team said that made me curious. At least they spoke about the impact of fake news on scientific research. And when they said that, I'm like, ooh, that's interesting. That's something that I have not heard of before. So it kind of ignited that curiosity, and I wanted to learn more about that, right? So, and I thought like, okay, that's pretty cool. I want to know more. So your intro should ignite that kind of curiosity in the audience, but it should, at the same time, it should be very crystal clear of what you're going to talk about. Any questions? No? All right. Then we'll talk about the middle portion. This is where the bulk of your research goes. Remember the step one, you have to do tons and tons and tons of research. This is where most of your research material will go through. Many people make the mistake of overloading this section with jargon, with stats, with information that's far away from the through line, right? Suddenly you will find yourself, if you're probably, let's just say if you were talking about a specific issue in science discoveries and fake news, maybe if you start to feel that, hey, maybe I have diverted and I've started talking about the impact of fake news on mental health, then you're going in the wrong direction, my friend. You have to bring back the focus on talking about fake news and scientific discoveries. Don't start talking about another topic, because you will lose the audience, okay? And while you are doing the middle portion, there are two things I want you to remember. One, why does this issue matter to you? I want to know, why do you care about this? This is where Saif, I think, and Roa, I think you guys spoke about the element of having that personal story or that personal touch. This is where you can throw in that personal touch, right? This is how I was impacted, or this is how my family was impacted, or my friend was impacted by fake news, or somebody, I don't know, make it personal. And this is where you should also try to tie it back to your audience. Why should you care? This is where I think it was Fatima or someone who said, know your audience, you know. Yes, this is where you should then also connect it to the practical implications of the issue on your audience. So you need to know your audience at this point as well. Sometimes you can definitely use stats and everything to back you up, I guess. But ideally, I want you to tell a personal anecdote. Personally, I want you to know your story. And because it's those stories that will really build that connection. You can then back up your story using some more stats, which is fine, but the focal point should be the story, not the stats. Okay? Any questions? No? All right. The climax. All right. Now you have described them the problem in the intro. You have clarity on the problem. You have told them in the middle section why this topic matters to you and to me. Now, I want you to tell me, now that I've started caring about the issue, tell me what can I do about it? I want to know. I want to know, Fatma. I want to know, Ibrahim, what can I do about this issue as a person, as an individual, or as a community, as a society? And also tell me maybe what action you have perhaps already taken. And what were the outcomes of those actions? Have you taken any action already? If you have, what was the outcome? I want to know. All right, so that's the climax. And it's as simple as that. Intro, middle, and climax. What you're going to talk about, why do you care about it? Why should I care about it? Okay, now that I care, what do you want me to do now? What should we do now? And that's it. That's literally it. All right. Next breakout time. Now, with the same teams, Ms. Nargis, if you can put them in the breakout room as again, but this time I want you to have very clear, very short intro and a middle and a climax, and you will get to present. Everyone will then get to present and speak. So this is your opportunity to create your script and speak. Everyone will get an opportunity to speak, okay? So you guys can go ahead and do this. If you want to do this individually, go ahead, do that. If you want to do it as teams, go ahead and do that, right? I think maybe with teams, it's good, but focus on your intro, on your middle, and your climax. And some of you might be thinking like, okay, how can I do this in 10, 15 minutes? Well, guess what? Here's a famous quote by Elon Musk. He says, if you give yourself 30 days to clean your home, it will take 30 days. But if you give yourself 3 hours, it will actually take 3 hours. And the same applies to your goals, to your plans, and to your ambitions. So if you say, hey, in 2 weeks, I'll get this done. What if you tell yourself you can get this done in 2 days? It will happen. You just have to tell that to your brain. Okay, so let's break them out in rooms again. And instead of 15 minutes, I'm going to give you guys 10 minutes only. Okay, because we are running a little bit behind schedule, and I want everyone to speak and practice public speaking. Yeah, okay. Let me share my screen again. All right, so before you guys present, I want to just share some tips and tricks with you, which I want you to pay attention to. And so that, you know, towards the end, when we are practicing, and everyone will get at least 30 to 60 seconds to practice, we will be able to then, I want you to incorporate some of these tips and tricks into your arsenal, okay? I have a question to ask. How many of you, we are running a little bit behind schedule. How many of you are okay to stay till 1:15 instead of 1? Because we were supposed to start this at 10:45, but we started it at 11. So I'll need an additional 15 minutes to wrap things up.
I have a meeting at 1, unfortunately.
Okay, anybody else who cannot stay?
I have to go as well.
At 1?
As well.
Okay. All right. So I'm going to speed through this one then and try to maximize our time for you to practice. Okay. And for those who are who have to leave first, you guys can present first. Okay. So some speaking tips that I want to start off with. Number 1, be a giver, not a taker. And I spoke about this earlier. I think it's very important for us it's so important that that it needs to be reiterated over and over again. When you are speaking, I don't want you to speak for the audience's applause or a standing ovation. I want you to speak because you want to teach something to somebody. You want to speak because you want to inspire other people to do something great and add value to their lives so that they have a new idea in their head, right? Don't do it for your own ego or for your own applause or your own standing ovation. Do it because you want to add value. A few tips and tricks then on handling fear and nervousness. I have seen speakers start talking or presenting as soon as they walk onto the stage, right? Or in the case of Zoom, you begin as soon as you are introduced by the host. We do not want to do that because that's a sign of being nervous, and it shows your fear and nervousness to the audience. So, you know, take your time, take a deep breath. When you take a few seconds to find your place, wait for a few seconds, and then begin. And I know it may sound tedious and long, and you may even think that it feels very excruciatingly very awkward, right? When you do the pause and you do a breath. But trust me, the audience, it shows to the audience that you are totally confident and you're in charge of the situation. Oh, and anxiety reappraisal. Anyone heard of this term before? Anxiety reappraisal? No? All right. It's actually a tip for you guys for people like me, and I'm sure there are a lot of people like me over here who feel fearful and nervous before a talk and presentation, and I'm certainly one of those. What anxiety reappraisal is that I say out loud to myself that I'm not nervous, I'm excited, and I keep saying that over and over and over and over again. And that's the power of mind, that's the power of words that it has on my mind. Let me explain. Anxiety reappraisal is when we are nervous, and when we are nervous, the physiological changes that happens to our body are things like increase in heartbeat, right? Our cortisol level shoots up, our body prepares for action. That's what happens when we are nervous, when we are anxious. What are the things that happens to our body when we are excited?
The same things.
Exactly. Absolutely correct. It's the same thing. Our cortisol level goes up, heartbeats goes up, and body prepares for action when we're excited. It's exactly the same thing. So what's the difference? The difference is in our mind, in our emotions. Nervousness is the negative form of these physiological changes, and excitement is the positive emotion, the positive spin to these physiological changes. So by saying out loud, I am not nervous, I'm excited. I'm not nervous, I'm excited. I'm not nervous, I'm excited. I'm just just telling my brain to get into that positive aspect of those physiological changes rather than focusing on the negative one. And trust me, this one helps me every single time. Every single time I find myself, reaping the benefits of doing that small little exercise before I begin. The other tip when you are feeling nervous is to slow down. It's not just our heartbeat when we are nervous. It's not just our heartbeat that starts to fasten up. It's also our words that starts to speed up. And one thing I can promise you is that the audience is a lot more patient and a lot more forgiving than you think. They really want you to succeed up there. But the more you rush, if you are rushed, then you're only going to turn them off. So be patient, slow down, and even if you forget something, don't fret. Even if you forget something, just take a pause, take a deep breath, and wait, and they will wait for you as well. And it will be really, really amazing. I'm getting another chat message over here. Okay, I'm gonna take a look at that chat message later on, but let's keep going forward. Okay, so how many of you have heard of this this tip that if you are nervous, just look between the shoulders of two people and don't make direct eye contact? It will seem like you're still, looking at the audience, but not really. I heard this, right? I've heard this. When I was young, this was actually the tip that I was given to make me feel less nervous. But one thing I can tell you is that is one of the worst advices that I ever got. It really was the #1 worst advice I ever got for public speaking. Never, ever, 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 ever do that. Scanning and panning is your worst enemy. While it may seem like you're looking at everyone, but you're not, it actually disconnects your audience from you. And you don't want that disconnection. You want your audience to feel those emotions that you're feeling. And that's why direct eye contact is paramount. In the world of Zoom, I try to look at the screen, but sometimes I try to look into the camera as well. So try looking into the camera as much as you can as well. All right. But I know in Zoom, it's a little bit different because I also want to look at the screen because I can see your beautiful faces on the screen as well, right? And I'm trying to make those eye contact with you. When you are speaking by looking into the camera or by looking into the eyes of the people, you are speaking, you are speaking with them rather than speaking at them, and that's the difference. It's a tactic that creates deeper connection, but the entire audience, the entire arena can actually feel it. The only small caveat I want to add over here, guys, is don't be a creep. Okay? Don't just stare into their eyes for too long. That's just weird. Don't do that. Okay? Just make a small little eye contact, move away, look at the other person, then turn away, look at the other person. Just be normal about it. Just don't be a creeper. Okay? Enunciation of words, very important. In your script, right? In the script that you're going to say, you should know what words are really important for you and your audience to pay attention to. And you should enunciate that words. I'll give you an example. If I say something like this, research shows fake news contributes to 25% of all mental health issues. Okay, that's example 1. Example 2, research shows that fake news contributes to 25% of all the mental health issues. You see the difference in the enunciation? Yeah. So pay attention to what are those words that are really important for you to make sure you say those words loud and clear to the audience. So you want to slow down on those words, enunciate them properly so that the audience can also pay attention to those words, because then you're not just flowing in a very monotonous tone. You are now moving your tone up and down, and the audience now pays attention to it. Because if you're just flat, you're just boring, right? Flat is dead. You don't want that for the audience. And that's kind of comes to your tone as well. And your tone matters a lot. And that actually, your tone goes hand in hand with your facial expressions. Use your entire body, right? Use your entire body to express the feeling of the message that you want to express. And this is very important. Your facial expressions and your tone should be in line with the emotions that of your message. Let me give you an example, okay? I dream of a world where public speaking is taught from an early age so that we can all become masters in communication, right? What was the emotion over here?
That you dream?
Exactly. There's a dreamy, absolutely correct, Ra. Dreamy emotion, dreamy, ambitious, right? That's the emotion. And the facial expression was in line with it. It's like, I dream of a world, right? You have to use your facial expressions, your hand, your tone to communicate that emotion. Now, imagine if I were to do this in a sad tone, right? If I were to do this in this tone, I dream of a world where public speaking is taught from an early age so that we can all become masters in communication. How does that sound?
It sounds like you're not passionate at all about what you're saying.
Exactly. Why? Because my tone, my facial expressions were dead, and the emotion was very sad, whereas my words were talking about something dreamy and ambitious. The tone and the expression were not in line with the emotion. It was as if I should have used that tone to really tell a story of how my dog died, because that's the tone that the sad tone. And that's the sad tone is more applicable to tell a story of when the story of how my dog died. Then using your hand gestures, again, very important. I get this question a lot, and it's really important to use your hand gestures, again, in line with the emotion. Some people don't prefer doing that, and that's fine, but use your hands to communicate your ideas. Because one thing I learned from one of the TED Talks that I was watching was this person said, we are actually born to speak with our hands. Let me explain that very quickly. Toddlers, if you have seen a toddler, a baby, when they cannot really speak, how are they really communicating? They're like moving their hands up and down and their feet, and they're really communicating with their entire body, right? So that's how we're actually born to really speak. So definitely use that for your when you're speaking in front of an audience. Using the physical space available. Of course, it's not really applicable right now, but when you are, hopefully, if you ever do this again, and there's a stage, and I want you to walk around that stage, left to right, feel free, but don't walk too fast, right? Just pace yourself. And the best thing I can tell you for this one is just watch a couple of TED Talks to get an idea of how the audience, how the speaker makes use of the physical space around him or her. But there is a certain etiquette for Zoom. We're going to be doing this on Zoom. So number one, some Zoom etiquettes that I want you to guys be aware of is, number one, familiarize with yourself with the tool. You should know how to start, stop a video, how to screen share, how to put yourself on mute or unmute, etc. Right? And have a professional background. No funky backgrounds. Zoom provides you with a lot of virtual backgrounds, like you can see the one that I'm using. Use something plain and simple, right? Make sure your audio video is working before you start your talk, and make sure you turn off all your notifications. Your camera should be at eye level, like how it is for me right now. I'm not looking down like that onto you guys, or not looking up like that. I'm looking into the camera. If it was possible for me, I would actually stand up and give the speech or the talk that I'm giving right now. But unfortunately, I don't have a standing desk, right? So I cannot do that. So again, for you, if it is possible, do you have a high top or a standing desk? Use that. And last but definitely not the least, practice. This is pretty self-explanatory, right? Nothing becomes muscle memory unless you practice relentlessly. So practice day in and day out in front of the mirror, in the TTC, in the gym, in the shower, wherever you can. Just practice, 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 because the more you practice, the more confident you will become. And the more confident you are, the more likely you are to succeed. And the last one I want to really talk about is asking for feedback. When you're practicing, practice in front of your friends, your family, your teachers, ask them for feedback. Ask me. I'm going to give you guys my email address. You want to book, a 15, 20-minute session with me to get feedback, feel free to book my calendar, email me, be like, hey, Omer, I want to practice with you so that you give me some feedback. I'll be more than happy to do that. So connect with me, and that's how I can help you in terms of your feedback. Summary, I'm not going to go through that because we are a little behind on time, but let's get started with the presentations with some people to talk. So people who had to leave early. People who had to leave early. Who had to leave early? All right, Fatima, I saw your hand go first. So you are going to be the first person, followed by Halima and then Malaika. Okay?
So Malika's in my group, so we'll just present together. We didn't really have enough time to write out our middle part and our climax. So I'll say the intro and then we can just give a rough outline of what we would do for the middle and the climax.
I want you to still continue doing it because I want you to continue speaking for at least 60 seconds, and I'll give you quick feedback on what you have done right and what you can improve on. So, all right, 60 seconds on the clock. Your time starts now.
Okay. Elijah McLean was a young boy who was passionate about using his time to aid helpless animals, shown through his contributions at the local animal shelter. However, due to the false narrative of Black people portrayed by the media, he lost his life as a victim of police brutality. The media's role in society is often a factor which distinguishes between life and death of a member of the Black community. I don't know what else to say because we didn't really write anything out. So.
But that's good. All right, that's fine. I don't want to give too much. I want somebody else to do a quick critique. Seth, I'm going to now just pick on people. Give feedback.
Okay, so give feedback to Fatima.
Yeah. How does she do?
I think she enunciated words really well.
I agree.
Like one of the
and
other. I think that
your voice is breaking up. Say.
Yeah.
Hello. Say, I think your voice is, but that's okay. Fatma, I think also I agree with Saif. You did a really good job of enunciating your words, and maybe I guess this will take practice. But if you just slow down just a little bit, that would be great. But other than that, good job. Just practice. I think the more you practice, the better you'll become. Alima, you're next, so I'm gonna start the timer. Okay, ready? 1, 2.
It's a group of us. Sorry. It's a group of us. So
you can say the same. This is a chance for you just to practice your public speaking skills, not about the content. It's not about the content right now. It's about speaking.
So would I just read the same, like the whole thing that my group brainstormed?
Yeah, sure. It's up to you. Whatever you want to speak about.
Okay.
Ready?
Yeah.
Go.
Would you believe me if I told you a president withheld COVID-19 research funding because he thought it was a hoax? Well, with the rise of fake news over the past 4 years, this is indeed true, as Donald Trump reduced funding for EcoHealth Alliance. A U.S. nonprofit named EcoHealth Alliance was shut down, although it was working from the Wuhan Institute of Virology and collected over 15,000 samples from bats. From these, they identified about 400 wholly new coronavirus cases, and about 50 of those fall into a category that caused the 2002 outbreak of severe acute respiratory syndrome, or SARS, and now the COVID-19 pandemic. the US will no longer have the ability to study the vast collection of new coronavirus cases already collected, as they are in freezers in China and are now not available to access them or the genetic sequences of the virus from those samples. So always seek
Okay,
out reliable.
that was actually pretty good. I just want to cut you off, sorry, but that was good. That was a really good start. Similar to Fatima, I'm just gonna say, you can slow down. That's okay. There's no rush. You can certainly slow down a little bit. That would really help you. And of course, when you practice more, the better you'll get. And if you want, I'm more than happy to have another session or one-on-ones with anybody who wants to have a one-on-one with me to practice and get more feedback. So thank you so much, Halima, for that. Malaika, I think I saw your hand go up as well, as you were another person who had to leave. Do you want to go next?
I just everything I'm going to say is exactly what Fatima said.
Or you can just talk about anything else and just be brave.
Okay.
All right, you have, yeah, and I just realized I'm going to give everyone just 45 seconds and then 15 seconds just for quick feedback, okay?
Okay.
Go.
Our role within society is to hold the government accountable. We need to ensure that the people representing us in our country are fighting for each citizen, not a single one, which is why protests, which is why the right to assembly and the freedom of speech are built into the freedom of a Charter of Rights and Freedoms. In order for us to be powerful as a country, we need to make sure that we create allies and we stand up against injustices, which is why the BLM movement, although present in America, it was quite apparent within Canada as well.
It's good. Did you prepare? Like, did you write this down? Or
Nothing.
no?
Nothing.
It's a good job. Other than the few ums and ahs, I think you did splendidly. That's fantastic. It's really good. It's awesome. Thank you so much, Malaika. Good job. Who else had to leave? Saif, I think you said you had to leave. All right, I'm gonna get you started. Okay, 45 seconds. Saif, you're breaking up and you're losing time.
Okay. Oh,
go ahead.
Sorry, can you hear me? Okay.
Yeah.
The political left often pushes the narrative that. Okay. The political left often pushes the narrative that most or all Muslims align themselves with the left. This, however, isn't true. Muslims are as diverse in political affiliation as they are in culture and language. The division among politics and Muslims is only increased by the continued polarization and division caused by false and biased media shared across platforms such as social media, mostly by the far right. Today we'll be talking about how polarization affects the Islamic political identity and how we can navigate the strange political climate as Muslims.
All right. Good job. I really like your pace, by the way. It was nice, slow. I could hear everything. You did not make me feel rushed at all. I did not feel like I need to keep up the pace with you, right? So your pace was really good. It was calm, it was slow. So that really hits the bullseye. Just make sure when you're actually doing it, you have a good audio video connection, because you don't want to waste time with choppy internet, right? But again, do your best for that. Great. Ibrahim, you want to go next? I saw your hand go next.
Okay.
All right.
Shows that around that. Okay. Sorry. Can I start?
Oh, okay. All right. Let's start again.
Okay. Research shows that more than 35% of Muslims voted for Donald Trump in the 2020 election. This is more than the 2016 election 4 years ago. Because of further implementation and false and biased information based off of where they live. This is because of further implementation and false and biased information based off of where they live. I had a friend in the US who also voted for Donald Trump, and he lived in Texas. And if anybody was keeping up with the election, Texas was won by Donald Trump. So, yeah.
Good job, man. Good job. Not bad. What did you got? Anyone wants to give a quick feedback instead of me just giving feedback? Seth you already gave feedback. Rana, Roa, Javeria. Anyone wants to give some feedback? Go ahead. I'm gonna pick on people. Roa, go for it.
Okay, I think it was easier for me to understand because it wasn't as fast. Or maybe I talk fast, I'm not sure, but it was easy for me to understand, which I liked. And it also gave like a very personal example about his friend also picking for Trump, or voting for Trump in a predominantly red state as well, which is also something I liked.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, that's it.
Okay, good. I don't disagree with that, absolutely. I think, Ibrahim, you also did a good job with keeping your pace and being clear. My only thing will be, perhaps you can, enunciate some of the words a little bit more, because there were a few words I could tell you want the audience to pay attention to, but you didn't enunciate them clearly. So just do the little bit of work on the enunciation, and practice more in front of more and more people to get more feedback. All right. Thanks, Ibrahim. Next, we can go with Roa. Can we go with Roa or Javeria? Who wants to go next? Or Rana?
I can go if you guys don't want to.
Go for it.
Okay. So Halima actually said like most of our group's part. So this is just extra research I did on our topic because I like it. Okay, so Johns Hopkins president wrote that the income is projected to dip by $175 million just due to Donald Trump removing their budgets and research fundings in the past year. And more than half of the projected drop in income over the next 15 months comes up to around $300 million in revenue. And that blow is going to be mainly felt by physicians who perform all sorts of procedures, researchers, and Johns Hopkins is now expecting to suspend retirement contributions for 1 year and trying to save another $20 million by freezing salaries. In addition, they're also putting up a 1-year hiring freeze to save $40 million. Yes.
Good job. That was really good. Even though you stuttered somewhere in the middle, I think you had a really good way to come back to it. And what I liked was you just gave it like a simple smile, and then the audience was, at least for me, that smile was like, oh, that's okay. You started. It's okay. These things happen, and then you just moved on. You didn't dwell too much into that stutter, and that's, I think, very, very important. The audience wants you to win. All right. So good job. Excellent. Okay, Javeria, we'll go with you next. And last but then definitely not the least, Rana, we'll go with you. Is that okay?
Sure. So I'll just repeat what Halima kind of said. That's
also, one more thing. Sorry, Javeria. For your team, I like how you guys start. The only maybe a way, if you can think about it, is you in the beginning you're throwing a lot of stats, which is fine. It's not a wrong thing to do. But what if maybe you were able to throw some sort of like a personal anecdote up front, like how it kind of had an impact on you, perhaps, and then tie it back into the research and the stats. Just a suggestion.
Okay.
All right.
Okay.
Cool. Javeria, floor is all yours.
Would you believe me if I told you that a president of a whole country can withhold funding from a research just because he believes it's a hoax? That's not a hoax. That's true. The president of the United States, Donald J. Trump, actually withheld funding from a research institution called EcoHealth, research related to COVID-19, just because he didn't believe that the virus is true. Now, why is research even important? Research is kind of like the main thing in my university experience. Research is how I gain knowledge. Research is how I give knowledge. So if you believe that research is something that is important and should receive funding, regardless of the opinion of a president, then this is a topic you might be interested in.
Fine. Good. Excellent. Man, you guys are already such good public speakers. Why did I even create this entire thing for you guys? I don't know. You guys are doing so well. That's awesome. Good job. Really, 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 really good job, Javeria. Again, don't really have any specific feedback because of course the time was short, but just your pace was good. You enunciated the words correctly. My only thing will be, I know you'll need a little bit more practice for this, but just the eye contact, just look at the screen. There are a few times when I saw your eyes go here and there, which is okay. It's happened sometimes, but try to reduce that just a little bit. Look at the screen. Okay. Good job. Last but definitely not the least, Rana.
Yeah, so my group was Halima, Javeria, and Roa, and so I'm gonna kind of try to change it up a bit so you don't hear the same thing. But
you can, yeah, go for it.
While civil tensions have always existed, over the past 4 years they have increased dramatically, and part of the reason for this is the volume of news we consume on a constant basis, including fake news, which has specifically affected the scientific community. With social media and news channels relaying information all day, constantly feeding us information that is created to suit our biases and preconceptions of the world, we are further separated into our own circles and parties, causing us to lose a sense of unity and common humanity. This leads us to start doubting information that is relayed to us, that comes our way. And to combat this, one of the things we can do is to try and gain well-rounded information from all news sources rather than gaining information from the same source at all times.
Okay. Can I give one constructive feedback if you don't mind? Right now, of course, you have written it out and you were reading it. It was very obvious that you were everybody has a reading tone versus a speaking tone.
Mm-hmm.
And right now, if you were just reading it, it was very obvious that you were just reading it.
Okay.
Right? And that's okay because right now you haven't memorized it or you haven't practiced it. But try my only point to you or anybody else who's still listening, try not to read it. Okay? If you try to read it, it will become very obvious that you're reading it and you want to speak. Because when you're reading, you're reading, you're not connecting with the audience. When you're speaking, you're connecting with the audience. All right? That's awesome. It's great job, guys. Thank you. Thank you so much. And that's basically it. That's all that I had. You guys can share, if you guys have taken any pictures or anything, shared with us on social media, connect with me. If you need any feedback, I'm more than happy to help. And unfortunately, we didn't have the chance to do the questions, but once I send out this deck to Ms. Nargis, she can she can send it out to everyone. And there are some resources that I would highly, highly, highly recommend that you guys read and watch. Some of them are TED Talks, some of them are books that I would really recommend you guys reading to improve your storytelling and public speaking abilities. One of the best books that I have read is the TED Talk by Chris Anderson. Great, great, great book on how to speak, how to create your intro, climax, middle section of the story. It'll help you break everything down. So definitely read that book and watch other people, how they, they give speeches. Malala's speech. And then there's number 3 is actually a very interesting article that breaks down her speech at the United Nations and tries to tell you why that speech was super effective. I wanted to do that as the main part of this session today, but then I realized it's perhaps better to be more engaged rather than breaking down a particular speech, because we don't want just one style. I did not want to teach just one style of creating a talk or a speech, but read that article, super helpful. All right. Cool.
Thank you so much, Omer. That was absolutely great. Wonderful. Your time, very, very valuable time that you gave to my voice, and really appreciate it. All of you guys, whatever you learned, please apply it. And those of you who did not sign up for the communication segment, you feel free to do that, please, because even if you're not part of the Academy Kids, it's going to be great for you to practice, and it might just get you out of your comfort zone. So if you have any questions, as Omer said, please email him. And thank you so much for coming on time, having your videos on, and participating.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you. Thank you so much. It's you guys who make the experience really come out for me. It's not just about me creating. So you guys, and I said that in the beginning, you have a role to play to help me. So you guys did that. Thank you. I really appreciate it. Jazakallah.
Thank you. Jazakallah khair. Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum assalam. Take care. Have a wonderful
Alaikum
rest of the
assalam.
Sunday, everyone.